All right. I guess we got a few things to talk about. I'm like, should I title this like with everything? Title it one thing and do a lot? I don't know. Because I haven't watched Guy on the Sofa's video yet, but he says that Lori Daybell has been found guilty. So we got to watch that video. So we're going to go over a little bit about Lori Daybell being found guilty. And then been listening to some more Exmo's comments or videos. So I got some things to say about things. Because I, at one point, could empathize kind of with him. Like, I've never fully gone full apostate. With my first husband, like, they used to pass out flyers about, like, the Mormon God is this and the Mormon God is that and the Mormon church is this and that. And they would pass out these flyers and they'd take a scripture or something, a little kernel of truth. We're going to go over that in a minute. And expound upon it. And of course, they're going to expound upon it in the most negative way you can spin something. And so I want to talk about some of the things that people are out there saying and the negativity they're spinning it in and some of my thoughts on that. And then we will talk about the GRB community. I was watching it again the other day and I realized she is in season 2 of her show. And you know what? The only thing keeping her popular and famous is all these streamers that still stream about her. Like, I wonder if anybody would be watching the Lifetime season 2 if people weren't out there streaming and talking about it, trying to get her supposed child. Because I still don't know if I believe this is her child or she's borrowing somebody's child. Like, somebody, like, I bet she found somebody that... It's not a far stretch that she found somebody that was like, oh, yeah, make my child famous. You know, go ahead, put my child on you. I'll let you borrow my child for a minute. You know, bad mom, because that child was crying in one of the videos and in distress. And you sat there and filmed it. And that's horrible to sit there and film a child in distress. I don't care if you're saying this is 3 nights of colic. And so to all your haters out there, you're going to prove that you're a good mom by filming your child in distress. You know, a child is in more distress when the mother is in distress. I used to be colicky baby. I was my only baby that was colicky. And my mom hated the fact that I liked my dad better because he was calmer. My dad would come home from work. He'd hold me. I'd stop crying because he had a calmness to him. My dad was always slower to anger than my mom. And apparently I like that because my current husband is slow to anger too. Like, I like the guys that have that subtleness to them when you hug them and they're slow to anger and you just feel peace when you hug them when you're laid up against their chest. You know, loved it as a baby, love as an adult. But anyways. Oh, and we have the lawyer, he says jurors speak out. So I actually have my, we can look at that for a second. Okay, we want this one. Okay. Yeah, see, it says jurors speak out. So I do watch the lawyer, sometimes because he's a lawyer. And so he goes over, he thought Lori Daybell representing herself was going to be like crazy awesome. So anyway, so we got a few things to go over here today. Let me pop that chat open also so I can see it in case anybody chats. And this weekend we're going to hook up my new modem because our ISP offered us a new modem replacement for free. to give us an upgrade, which because our modem always overheats and I have to keep a fan on it and it constantly has been going down lately. We'll go down for like 5 minutes, every 5 minutes, 2 or 3 times, and then it'll finally be back up. But it's been going out almost daily. And so a couple of the times we were gone from home, and so it was like, well, good thing we were gone and busy. I haven't been home in 2 days, hardly. Like, we've been gone for 2 days. Like, we've had so much to do. And so, but here I am because we're finally home. But yeah, we've been gone for 2 days. So today's my first day being home. Got to do some housework, got some things cleaned up that have been long needing to be, because I hate it when I'm not home and I get home and you've been gone all day and the last thing you want to do is clean. You make an excuse and say, I'll do it tomorrow, which is walking that fine line by saying I'll do it tomorrow. But I did. The first thing when I woke up this morning, for the first hour I was awake, was nothing but cleaning. So, getting stuff done. So, should we go into the Exmo stuff first? I've been writing down a little bit of notes here and there on multiple different channels I've watched. I'm not going to name any of the channels and give them any kind of recognition. If you know who I'm talking about, you know. If you know, you know. If not, you don't know, you know. Whatever you know. And then you can go find them yourself. Please don't put them in my comment section and draw attention to them. If people want to, I'm not going to say you can't go look at an Exmo channel. It's not smart to. The reason why the church says you shouldn't is because if you listen to, I really like Don Bradley. Don Bradley, he talks about why he went apostate for 10 years. He went apostate, and it all started with an apostle had wrote a book, and it was published and in Deseret Book. And his dad took him to Deseret Book and for family home evening when he was like 15, 16, 17, something like that. He was 15, maybe 15, and said, hey, I will buy you guys any book tonight. This is family home evening. We're buying books. And you're in Deseret Book, and Deseret Book approves these authors. And so you think you're safe in Deseret Book because they approve the authors, the subjects, everything. And so he picks up a book by an apostle. I don't think this person ever became prophet. I can't remember who he said it was, but it was at least an apostle. And apostles are trustworthy. But this apostle had gone down a deep rabbit hole of Joseph Smith polygamy and all of these things. And he came out on the other end stronger in his faith. And there's like a few different ways you can come out. Like, you can come out stronger in your faith. You can come out weaker in your faith. Or you can come out apostate on the other end. And these Exmos thrive themselves on, well, we're saving people, right? We're out here, we're telling the truth. Or their truth. Or some form of a truth. And if you listen to their podcast and you're questioning, you have doubts. Who doesn't have doubts? Doubts is part of life. We're human. Doubts come into our brain. It's part of life. And so doubts come in, and these Exmos are like, yay, doubt has come in. And can you read it? No, it's kidding. I made it bigger. Doubt comes in, and they feed that doubt. And so that's why I don't want to give any one person, either on my video or on the comment section, I'm not saying you can't go watch him, just saying be prepared. And because I don't want your doubts to be fed by them. Because they laugh and actually make fun of the fact that we often say that the devil takes a kernel. He only needs a kernel of truth. Really, he does. And then he turns that into, he spins that into, and that's actually the truth. This is why our criminal justice system is so messed up. If you want to know why our criminal justice system is so messed up, it's because, like, I was reading about Joseph Smith's time. So back in Joseph Smith's time, okay, so people used to, like, take, like, it was so easy to charge somebody. Like, they would charge Joseph Smith with, like, deception. Martin Harris's wife did this. And Martin Harris went to Joseph and, hey, my wife's taking you to court, and begged him to see the gold plates or something to prove to me that you're not deceiving me, because we got open court with you. But Martin Harris walked away with just a revelation from the Urim and Thummim that Joseph gave him. And he went to court and he was like, nope, I actually gave Joseph Smith $50. I believe him. I'm helping finance this work. I am being his scribe. I believe this guy. And the judge threw it out, because back in those days, you used to be able to, like if you ever watched like Ally McBeal or Boston Legal or any of those shows, and you see these lawyers just getting to say whatever they want and go up in front of the judge and say whatever they want, and you go, that's not how court plays out. This is not at all how court plays out. Well, if you wonder where they get this from, and I think it's from back in like Joseph Smith's time, when you used to be able to stand in front of a judge and you didn't have 10, 15-minute court appearances and that was it. Like, you were scheduled a certain time frame and you have to work in that time frame and then you're done. Like, you literally got to stand in front of the judge and talk to him plain as day. Like, you guys were having almost a conversation. You got to sit there and say, hey, here's my literal truth, by the way. And but nowadays what happens is you get a lawyer, you get a public defender. You get a public defender, and they speak for you. They never let you speak. You speak freely to your public defender outside that courtroom, behind closed doors in a tiny little room. And you give them evidence, and that's where 100% of the truth is told. But when they walk in that room, they only give the judge 5% of the truth. And they say, oh, well, my client, like, this is her reason. And it's like a quick sentence or two. And that's it. And there's no actual discussion with the judge. And there's no actual, no, here, judge, here's the real story. Here's actually what is going on. And you're not allowed anymore to literally lay it out for the judge anymore. You're not allowed to literally go to a judge and say, no, here's actually the real story. No, we actually play a game now. Now, innocent people, if you end up in court, you're walking out with a plea deal at least. Either plea deal or jury trial, but once you've been charged, there's no way out of it. Charges don't get dismissed anymore. There's new laws that have been put in place that once you've been charged, you're considered guilty, which that goes against our constitutional belief that the state has the burden of they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you're guilty, because you're innocent until proven guilty. But no. Nowadays, the second you walk in front of a judge, you are guilty, and they want to see you claim some kind of guilt and at least take a plea deal. And a plea deal is a win for both sides, because court is about win and lose. It's not about truth and justice anymore, and justice is no longer blind. And that's why people like get mad at the original statue that they made with the blind justice person with the scales. Was supposed to represent our blind justice, because the judge is unbiased and all they're supposed to do is interpret the law. That's that's all they judge is. They're supposed to interpret the law, and they don't do that. And so that's a long rant. So there you go. And so our justice system is very messed up, because a kernel of the truth gets in there, but the prosecution gets to say whatever they want. They stand in front of that judge and they slander the crap out of you. And the judge believes them, because we live in an authoritarian society. We believe that if you're a doctor and you have a degree, everything you say is correct. We believe that if you are a police officer with a badge, that you are honest. We believe that if you are a lawyer and you went to school and you passed the exams, that you are smart and skilled at debate. We believe that if you got the degree and you carry the badge, You must know what you're talking about. And it's a big fallacy. Because how many doctors out there do you change doctors because the doctor's bad or the doctor was wrong? Or do you go get second opinions? Wouldn't exist if every doctor was trustworthy. Second opinions wouldn't exist. People wouldn't be dying and stuff at the hands of police, and innocent people wouldn't be arrested if police were completely trustworthy. But we have problems with our cops. And people know that if you get a public defender, you're going to lose. That they are very low paid lawyers. They are just starting out and practicing law, most likely. And you're not going to get a good defense unless you pay 10 or more grand, 10 to 20 grand for a real lawyer. But guess what? My public defender did better than a $7,000 lawyer. So it just depends on the public defender you get and how far you can push them to do what's right. Okay, so let's get into talking about what these guys are talking about. And so this is where, like, I needed to give a little lecture on a kernel of truth kind of thing, because we're going to take some kernels of truth and we're going to spin them. Okay? So people talk about, so one of the things the church teaches is gaining control of the natural man. And what that means, and this is definitely the problem that we're having in society right now, and I'm going to say it, people are going to get mad because I'm going to use multiple examples. And this is why the debate between Trump and Harris was so important, because this is the fight for what is right versus the natural man. Harris wanted people to win that. She wanted to win because the Marxist movement, they're like, oh, if you feel it, then you must be it. This is where we get the famous, what is a woman question. What is a woman? Well, it's whatever you feel. If you feel like a woman and you feel like a woman does this, this, and this, then you must be a woman. Whether you exactly dress like one or not, you must be one because you feel like it. And so we're talking about, well, if you feel like it, you should be allowed to exercise that. And so there's this podcast where these two Exmos are laughing about, do I want to say this word on my podcast? Self gratification? The M word? If you catch my drift. It's funny what they say on their podcast, because I've been told not to say that. And words like schmex and stuff, like don't say that word. Mix it up. Schmex. So once again, just because you feel it and you have the urges, should it be allowed? People are starting to talk about, well, PDOs out there. Oh, we got a new word for them. It's not PDOs. It's child attracted adult, like an adult with a child attraction. They're trying to normalize it by saying, I can't help it. I'm born this way. I'm naturally attracted to this. Therefore, let me. taking into no account of overriding your natural feelings to do what is right. They just want society to allow it. And so this is what's going on in our society now. Is if you feel it, you can be it. If you feel like an animal, you can be an animal. If you feel like a woman, you can be a woman. If you feel like neither, then you don't have to have a gender. You can just drop it all together. You can just deny your natural body, deny what you were born as. But then they also claim I was born this way, let me be this way. But then it's like, but you were also born with XX chromosomes or XY chromosomes. And so like the argument doesn't exactly stick, because it's like, well, you were born with certain chromosomes. Well, we're trying to tell you to be that way. Be the way the chromosomes were. Me and my husband had a long discussion yesterday about boys, girls, girls toys. Because I was told when I had my baby, my first baby, and it was a boy, and if you wanted to grow up to be a good dad and everything, you let him play with baby dolls and stuff and taught them to be compassionate. My husband says that was the Marxists kind of slowly moving in to get you to get your son to play with feminine things, so that later on, if they feel feminine, you claim it because you're going, well, I guess that explains why they always played with dolls. Not the fact that you let them play with dolls to try and teach them to have some kind of fatherly, not motherly, not female instincts. Fathers have natural protective instincts, and they do love their children. But sometimes men are taught to not cry, to grow up harder than women, to have a harder personality, to be rougher. But if you want a good husband and a good dad, you got to teach them a little bit of compassion. You got to teach them it's okay. But just because you play with this doll and I'm teaching you compassion does not mean you need to do transition. And so they say, like, this one person, I love it, she threw up this comment that said, well, God made nature, right? So here's your kernel of truth, okay? Did God create nature? Yes, he did. God created nature. So therefore, nature can't be bad, right? The natural man can't be bad if God created it. Well, that's a huge fallacy. There's a big flaw in that argument. First of all, that brought me back to my childhood. We used to say, this was our saying when we were growing up, because we play outside in the dirt all day. Sometimes you'd eat dirt. And you would say, well, God made dirt and dirt don't hurt. That was something I used to tell myself as a kid, that we'd chant for the fun of it. God made dirt, dirt don't hurt. God made it, it don't hurt. Well, snakes hurt. Lions hurt. Dirt does hurt. Dirt carries botulism. Soil carries botulism. It does hurt, by the way. I had a niece who was like, I think 3 months old, who got botulism. She was in the hospital for a whole month. Okay, so dirt does hurt, by the way, and God made it, and it does hurt. So that chant I said as a kid, well, guess what? It's wrong. So, and once again, another thing we told ourselves as children is everybody would say, oh, it's just weed. I can smoke it. It's the lesser of all the evils. It's actually not bad. You don't get addicted to it. Your body doesn't get addicted to it. Like, you can quit the next day and you're not going to go through withdrawals or anything. And we used to fight the idea that people would say, oh, this is just a gateway. Like, if you start this, and we'd be like, oh no, we have this friend over here who's been doing it for like 20 years and he's never gone to anything heavier. But on the other hand, we got 10 friends over here who went beyond it. So it's like, oh, we'd point out the one anomaly and we'd lean on the one anomaly and say, nope, 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 nope. Well, they say that they were laughing about self-gratification is people are like, well, how do you do the stretch from that to homosexuality and stuff and stretch that to like all these other schmexual sins? They're like, it's just yourself. How do you, and it's like, you know what? Same thing as the weed. It starts with one. Sometimes it's never good enough. You move on to the next and the next. But you always use excuses. Like I said, we'd point out the one or two anomalies when we had 10, 11, 12 other friends on the other end. There's like, well, what about them, and them over there? So, well, that's them. They can't control themselves. Oh, they can't control themselves. So it is about control. Okay, well, it is about control then. And then they get mad because there's this one ex. I just love it because you can tell she hates rules so much. You can tell that rules bug her. She is a rule breaker. Not a bender, breaker. And she's into forcing her kids and everybody to break them too. And her oldest son got really upset at her for making him break his mission rules because she felt like missions take your children away from you. Well, none of my brothers served a mission, but my husband did. And I at least know one of his brothers served a mission. I don't know I think one went into the Navy, and he's got like 4 brothers. So there's 5 boys in the family. So he went on a mission. The next one did not go on a mission because he didn't graduate high school, so he couldn't. And then the third boy went on a mission. And that was like when I was freshly first married to my husband, like 22 years ago, 20 years ago, he went on it because I was like a year or something into the marriage. And then the other 2, I don't know about them because we haven't been in the family in a while. I know one of them's married now. And then the other one went into the Navy. I think he skipped his mission, went into the Navy. But it's not a big deal which ones did and didn't go on a mission. Like, they don't look down exactly on the ones that didn't. Because the one that didn't, the second one, they call him the golden boy. So he's pretty popular in the family, and he's called the golden boy. So he ended up getting married in the temple and everything a couple months before I married his brother in the temple. And so we all got married, they got married in March. Me and my husband got married 4 months later in July. And then my sister got married 2 months later in September. Or October, was it? Something like that. Anyways. I know I read some of my husband's mission letters. He saved them, and his mom was upset that, well, because my husband went on a mission back in 99 when Palm Pilots came out. As soon as he came home, like, Palm Pilots weren't even out, or the Palm Pilots were barely out, and he was upset because he couldn't have one on his mission. But his brother got one on his mission. He's like, "You're so lucky." He's like, "I would have loved a Palm Pilot to organize my mission." But besides him wanting my husband to write more, like, Don said, like, his family cried a little bit at the airport. And this was back in the day when you could actually walk them to the gates. Because she also talks about going, well, I had to drop him off at the curb, and they said you only had like 1 minute, and they had to hurry and usher him into the airport. And it's like, yeah, because TSA. Because back in the day, when my husband went on his mission, you could be at the gates. You could walk them to the gates. And then you could have, you knew their gate number when they were coming home from their mission. You knew their gate number and their flight time, and you showed up with all your little signs and your little posters, and you're like, welcome back, brother or sister, you know. And back in my day, you got to do that. But because of 9/11, shortly, it's like my husband was one of the last few people, because he came home like 9 months before 9/11. And so 9 months after he comes home off his mission, airports get locked down. And so he's like one of the last few that got to experience, like, he's the only missionary in his family that got to experience being dropped off at the gates. None of his other brothers that have gone on a mission got to experience being dropped off at gates. But oh my gosh, I know my mother-in-law would never make him break a mission rule. Like, they choose to go, and yes, for 2 years, your sole focus, if you don't have the light of the Spirit with you, how are you supposed to help other people see the church that they're joining? If you're out there watching rated R movies and listening to Lady Gaga and other kinds of music and stuff like that, and if you're listening to all that stuff, how are you supposed to have the light of Christ unless you constantly put yourself in the mindset by constant study and reading? And like, one of the reasons why I changed over, like, when I had to rebrand myself and be like, okay, no longer Roses in the 13th hour, I had to rebrand myself and drop the 13th hour part. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to try and live a Christ-centered life, I might as well bring my podcast there with me. Why not? Right? But I still can't talk about crime, though, because I still come from the crime community and people want me to talk about crime. So we are still going to talk about crime. And luckily, Lori Daybell fits in both categories, because Lori Daybell fits both. Should we see what's the lawyer you may know has to say about Lori Daybell? Her guilty plea, and how did she represent herself? I watched some of the videos about people talking about how she self-represented herself, but I didn't watch a lot. But we can skip through some of what lawyer you may know has to say. Let's put on our ears and see what lawyer you may know has to say about Lori Daybell. And then we'll also see what the guy in the closet, the guy on the sofa, has to say. Guy on the sofa.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into an episode of The Lawyer You Know. And we have juror interviews from Lori Daybell's trial. They reached a guilty verdict after only 3 hours of deliberation.
3 hours of deliberation? That's short, guys. That's short. 9 days for OJ. Nah.
And we want to know why. We know why we think they did it. And I've seen some clips of it, but this is a full video of, I think, 3 different jurors that are interviewed and give their thoughts. I haven't watched it in its entirety. I just figured let's watch it together for the first time, for me at least, get
and first
our
time
immediate
for me.
reactions. Were they thinking what we were thinking? What did the prosecutor do to really push them in that camp? Or what did Lori Vallow herself do to push them into the guilty camp? Let's get through it together. Make sure you guys.
Because nobody believes for 1 second that Charles Vallow had a demon inside of him. And the way that Lori Daybell questioned Charles Vallow's date, the jealousy was so there, so bad, that they're like, oh my gosh. I mean, the kind of people that cheat on their spouses but then get jealous when their spouse cheats on them, and they judge their spouses and they judge other people, you judge them harsher because you see them judging everybody when you're going, dude, quit looking at the mote in everybody else's eye because you got a giant beam.
Guys, hit that like button. Here we go.
Lawyer, you know. Let's do this.
All right, so this literally seems to be on the courthouse steps, which is very interesting. And a couple things that happens in some of the clips I saw is, I'm not sure the jurors were like ready or knew they were going to get interviewed, but here it is, and they do get interviewed. And let's take a look at what they had to say, because even the small clips I saw seemed to give pretty good insight as to what that jury was thinking and what they were doing, and maybe why it took the time that it took. So let's take a listen together.
Walking out now, knowing, I think you're knowing how high profile this case was. What's going through your head?
Sadness. It's sad. Oops, I'm sorry. It's just sad that, this has happened to Charles, and she's given up her life as well. It's sad.
What did you think of her defending herself? Anything that went through the jury's head with that?
Well, for me personally, I thought, what does she have to lose? Guilty or not guilty, what does she have to lose?
She's got a lot to lose if you don't know about the other cases, right? So, like, now that you know about the fact that she's already got multiple life sentences,
it's more like, what do you got to lose? Because when you self-represent yourself, sometimes you think, like I was talking about at the beginning of this video, if you caught the beginning of this video where I was talking about how you can talk more freely to the judge and the jury than a lawyer would. A lawyer like disguises and codes everything, and the jury and everybody's got to like decode it and hope if they decode it that you're found guilty or innocent. But if they don't decode it, you're guilty. And so if you represent yourself, like, what do you got to lose? Like, you're probably heading for a guilty verdict. So what do you honestly have to lose? Because you're probably going to be found guilty. So it's like, no, she doesn't really have anything to lose. She just puts on a better show if she represents herself. Which she did.
We all knew she had nothing to lose as the public that knew what was going on. But if you're sitting in there and you think this is the only charge against her and she's pushing for self-defense, she's got everything to lose.
So were any of you folks aware that this woman had already been
I had never been heard. I have never heard of her.
Homicides?
Yeah, no,
And
I've
the
never
jurors
heard of
did
her
not
before.
know that.
No, I did not.
And nobody brought it.
And ma'am, would you want to come in and talk too? Do you want to say anything?
Just there's a lot of backstory here, and this woman had already been convicted of 3 homicides, and they obviously didn't want you folks to know that. Nobody knew that during your deliberations.
No.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Well,
What was this experience like for you? It was sad.
This is another juror. That's why I think there's 3 altogether. We get from that initial male juror, from this juror, and then I think another juror as well.
As he said, for me, it was the text messages that did it as far as evidence.
I think nobody can be surprised about that, right? Before we got rid of Ned.
Well, that Nephi one was kind of, especially if you know the story of Nephi, I guess. I mean, I guess could be pretty damning. If it's like, I'm Nephi and we're facing a world of Labans and we got to cut down every Laban out there. But people, this is where you get the kernel of truth thing again. People twist it because Laban was a one-time deal. God didn't say kill every Laban out there. He said this one man is holding the Bible hostage, and you're not going to get it. And the world is going to lose these plates if he keeps them and does whatever he pleases with them. And so it was just a rare circumstance. It wasn't something that it's meant to be like, oh yeah, Nephi, you're a murderer now. Go to it. There's a lot of Labans out there. We need you, Nephi. Actually, people think that God likes to do wars and killing, but let's look again at like the city of Jericho or not what are they called? The stripling warriors whose parents vowed never to fight again, and God didn't force them to. He respected the commitment that they made, the covenant, and their children were blessed for it. They went out there and got their Gadianton robbers.
Let's be like Nephi.
Yep.
Right? Do it for the mission. The text messages, Lori's own statements came back to damn her, and that is very common. And we're talking about in the Karen Reed case, one of the big differences already just a couple days in, they are playing a lot of her own statements. And you can see how powerful that can be to a jury, especially when a defendant doesn't testify. And that is what did Lori Vallow in, which is pretty much what we expected, so no surprise there.
Yep. And I feel like we uncovered some lies. So
now that she was
uncovered some lies, which if you remember an opening statement, and the prosecutor did a good job to point it out in closing argument, that
is, let me guess, is it the gun? Because the story they tell about how the brother got the gun was not like, it's all over the place. The story of how the brother got the gun, the self-defense story, and the 911 self-defense call. An hour after Charles was gone, they finally called 911 with this story of self-defense.
What Lori said in opening was not facts. They were not evidence. And it did not come to pass. And some of you guys mentioned did Charles.
By the way, I don't know if people know this in court, but opening statements and closing statements are just that. They tell the jurors a little bit about what the court case is, but an opening and closing statement is not A, fact, and B, it is not evidence. And so whatever is said by a lawyer in opening and closing arguments is just a story, by the way. They are not fact. They are not to be taken as factual, and they are not evidence, and they're not to be taken as evidence, by the way. So whatever you hear in opening and closing, you just kind of take it as, this is my guide. As a lawyer, I'm giving you a guide to what I will be showing you over the next few hours and days. This is my guide to it. And then a closing statement is basically, let me wrap up what I was trying to tell you for the last few days. So, because you might have forgotten something in the last 4 or 5 days, because this is a long case. So a closing statement just packages it up nicely. You just package up everything you've gone over the last 4 days nicely, but it's not evidence and it's not factual.
Bat left-handed or right-handed. So they went back, and in those 3 hours they deliberated, if there were some people on the fence and they start pointing out Lori Vallow is a liar, so if she's lying about that, what else is she lying about? That can also be a big deal. And that's why when you catch a witness in a lie or a defendant in a lie, more importantly, you highlight it and make sure the jury knows it. And the prosecutor armed the jury with those text messages and those lies during closing argument. So if there was anybody on the fence, the jurors that were in the guilty camp could pull those jurors in with what you armed them with. As a lawyer, that's what closing arguments are all about.
Mm-hmm.
Convicted of killing her 2 children.
And one thing closing arguments are all about is during the course of a trial, you'll get aha moments and you'll add them to your closing statement. and you give those aha moments to the jury and you say, oh, yeah, we showed this and then they showed this and this is, but it's still not factor evidence. You still got to take that into consideration, but it is still wrapping it up nicely in a package for the jury.
I haven't had a chance to Google everything. I'm sure as soon as we get on the shuttle. So might have more to say later.
Was that difficult going through this and
Yes,
not being
it
able to be
was.
disconnected?
Yeah.
What
It
do
just
you
felt
think-
like there was a lot of information that didn't make sense and that was missing.
Do you think?
It was obvious to them that there were things that didn't make sense, things that were missing.
Mhm.
I also kind of appreciate her comment there. She's like, did you guys know about what she did to her kids? She's like, well, I want to go Google it and stuff because just because somebody says it, I don't want to jump to conclusions and make my opinions now. So I'll probably have more thoughts later. I think that's a very sound, reasonable answer to that question because it's like impossible. How do you change your reaction immediately? You just convicted somebody of the worst crimes. And now you're
Well, I'm glad. I bet now that they know about the kids and the brother and everybody, that they're going, oh yeah, I'm glad we found her guilty because, wow, if she's guilty of the other three, she's certainly guilty of Charles Vallow. And so that's probably a relief off their shoulders to hear this. That they're going, okay, so we weren't wrong by saying guilty. If we had said not guilty, then we'd have something to worry about.
you're finding out all this other stuff. How do you even respond to that?
Think she did herself any favors by
No.
defending herself?
No,
You were not impressed with her lawyering skills?
no.
What did you think of her behavior during cross-examination? The way that at one moments she was argumentative with some of the witnesses.
I mean, many days she just was like smiling and laughing and didn't seem to take anything very seriously.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we saw. It's like not a good time to giggle,
Mm-hmm.
not a good time to joke around with a witness or to laugh about a pronunciation. It's your life on the line. Your husband is no longer with us. And no surprise, she didn't think a pro se defendant did herself any favors, right? We tried to highlight the few times that, oh, maybe that was okay. She did all right there. But when you represent yourself, it very rarely goes well.
Yep. I don't know if I want to show this whole video because I don't want to get like copyright or something. I don't know. But anyways, this sounds interesting. Like, I'm glad that so you guys can finish watching the lawyer. He's really good. Go over some of those juror statements and those closing arguments and stuff. And let's see. Let's go back to YouTube. Oops. Let's see. Reported to CPS Lies Cries FBI. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay, there it is.
Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the Sofa. Y'all, this is going to be another one of my quick updates. I usually do it from the truck, but it's very early morning, and so I'm just going to do it like this. But it's not going to be one of my fancy little edited videos, okay? It's just going to be, just me and you and just this kind of thing. All right, now. So, what we're going to be talking about today is, you already saw the thing.
I never do fancy edits. I'm like, you get me live, and that's what you get.
The guilty verdict. Okay. This was years in the coming. Years in the coming. Now, obviously, if you're familiar with the case and this is the guilty verdict in relation to the charges that were brought against Lori Daybell for the unaliving of her husband, Charles Vallow. So what I've done is I have just taken notes from my computer right here. I'm just going to read through them, and these are just the things that kind of stuck out to me. So we're going to talk about the verdict, and we're going to talk about some of those juror interviews that Nate and Lauren with Head and True Crime did at the end of, obviously, the court date and whatnot. So I'm just going to refer to these over here as we talk, and I'll offer my opinion and whatnot. So jury deliberated for a little less than 3 hours over 2 days. So now, again, we were streaming this on the podcast channel, and the first day, I believe it was I think it said that they deliberated 17 minutes. Then the next day, which was yesterday, they came in, I think it was 90 minutes before lunch and 75 after, something like that. And we'll talk more about what they did in that time when we get to those juror interviews. Now, let's see, there's going to be there's going to be an aggravating factor thing before this all started. And the judge at the beginning was like, basically like, okay, Lori and state, here's the drill. If Lori's found guilty, then there's going to be like an aggravating factor thing. State was like, yeah, we're going to have a couple of people speak. And Lori's like, hello, can I just like stipulate to those? Okay. And so the squabble goes back and forth to where the judge is finally like, well, let's wait to hear the verdict. It was like she already knew, right? And I said, I'm just going to read my notes here again. Judge was like, okay, well, let's see, what we have. And he was like, if it's guilty, there's going to be a mini session. And State's like, yeah, I'm going to bring a couple of people in. And most likely it was going to probably be like Kay Woodcock, someone like that and whatnot. And then that's when Lori's like, can we just stipulate, isn't there only like one sentence for this crime? And the judge is like, okay, whatever. So then that's when the judge is like, okay, well, let's see. Now, she ultimately, obviously we get the verdict comes in, right? It's guilty. So Lori ultimately stipulates, and this will help her avoid hearing from whoever the state was going to call up there, which again, I think definitely at minimum, Kay Woodcock was going to be one of them. Now, then also Lori will ask to be sentenced until the Brandon Boudreaux trial after that wraps up. Remember, there's a whole separate trial getting ready to come up again that, yes, she will be representing herself. Now, next court hearing is May 14th for that one's in relation to Brandon's trial. Jury selection will begin at the end of May, and then June the trial starts. And we'll also talk about like kind of our live streaming schedule over here too for the other channel. So then let's talk about some of those reactions that we were able to see. So Kay and her siblings, Kay Woodcock and her siblings, Charles Valley's siblings, they spoke afterwards, okay? And I just put up here, the brother said, they're relieved, they're happy with the verdict. They think that everyone's going to ultimately end up just kind of forgetting about Lori, that she was a smarty pants, that she sucked as a lawyer. Also, I love Kay, I swear. I would just love to be able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with her. Kay also noted that she hopes that Lori loses the baby talk and learns to speak like a woman in prison.
Gypsy didn't, so why would Lori, right? If Gypsy didn't learn how to speak, like, that baby talk only gets them farther, right?
And it's the truth. Oh, God, I absolutely adore them, right? So, and the brother, he did close out with some couple of, let me fix my focus there. The brother closed out with a couple of things that I won't repeat here, but it's worth watching if you have not seen that interview. Okay, so then let's get to the tea. Okay, so the jurors spoke out. Now, the jurors told their names. I'm not gonna put them up here. So, the three of them spoke, okay, and they spoke to several news outlets, right? But specifically, who I looked at was, we listened to a very brief snippet from Hidden True Crime in the moment, like we're in the live chat, and then Nate posted, and so you can tell, like, it's like Lauren's asking some questions to one, Nate's asking some questions, that kind of thing. Nate vs. Idaho News, Lauren what I mean by that is Hidden True Crime. Okay, so the jurors speak out. A few of them talked. I'm just reading my notes here too. A few of them talked. One of them was LDS and no one else in the jury was, which I thought was very interesting. One said that sadness was going through his head, like how he felt. He thought, what does she have to lose representing herself? Like, honestly.
Okay, so the guy in the blue shirt that said, what does she have to lose? I guess that guy was LDS. Interesting. So you can see how he had a take on it of what does she got to lose, and he found the case very sad. And so it was interesting, his comments he made. And he was LDS, so he understood some of the references that Lori Daybell was making without like people trying to tell him what the references were and trying to sway his mind. Because like, if you really know the Nephi story, you really know the Nephi story. Like, you like, but if somebody tells you, oh, well, Nephi just wanted Laban's sword. It was a beautiful sword with gold inlay and it was jewels and it was beautiful. And he coveted that sword and, he thought he heard a voice in his head telling him, oh, go ahead and, take Laban and take the sword and don't worry, God's not going to be angry at you because God says you can do it, and wrestle that in your head. And so it's like, that's quite an interesting way to spin the Nephi story, but Nephi did not covet that sword. He needed it to go get the plates. He had to look like Laban. He had to dress in Laban's clothes.
He personally had no idea who she was. They didn't know she'd been convicted of these other crimes. Now, that was the thing where they literally, and we'll talk more about it, where they're walking out and just learning, oh, she what her kids? I mean, they were literally like, I haven't even sat down to Google yet. You know what I mean? Like, and they're learning from these news outlets. Whoa. And you know that they had to be like, this is major, like when they're going to places and whatnot, like lunch and stuff like that. So, okay, another juror said it was the text messages that did it for her. They uncovered lies, and then she, at the time, okay, so then I'm reading my notes. So at the time that she was speaking to Lauren, she did not know that Lori had unalived her kids. So this juror, when she's here talking to Lauren, Hidden True Crime, was just being made aware of like that Lori had unalived her kids. Okay, her grandmother's been very nice, not talking to her about it, whatever. Can you imagine? You know that grandmother was like, I'm getting ready to just I'm talking such a servant of tea, she didn't know what to do with it. I feel like, here we go. We're one chapter away, I guess you could say. And that's one thing that Kay said in her little interview too, is, she was just like, okay, we got the Brandon thing to go. And, Kay's like, we're raising, not me and her, but obviously her and Larry. We've got a 10-year-old granddaughter. We're doing this, we're doing that. We're going to make sure that everybody's thing, we're here. We got this kind of thing, but we want to be doing some other stuff besides, this, right? And I don't blame her. I mean, this is so crazy.
Yeah, it'll be better for the family once Lori Daybell is done in all courts, has been charged in all courts, and she's just serving her sentence, and then they can go on with their lives, and they can forget everything Lori Daybell did, and then they can move on and finish, getting through their lives and whatnot. And I bet it's got to be very, very hard, especially if any of that family is LDS and your last name's Vallow, and they're like, you're a Vallow? Are you related to Charles Vallow? And it's probably like, we're going to change our last name, by the way. Let's go change our last name. Let's go change the last name. Go change the last name. Okay, we'll finish up with talking about the GRB community. Because I was just watching it the other day and I was like, you know what? I mean, they don't really have much new on Gypsy. It's all the same old things. It's all about the money, though. It's all about the money. So the only people that are still streaming about Gypsy is because they are the top streamers that were making the money. And then there's two people streaming about Gypsy right now. You're either the people that are monetized with YouTube and you're making good money talking crap about Gypsy, or you're trying to stream about Gypsy, get your name out there and make the money. But in the meantime, you're keeping her popular and you're making her money. And I'm sitting here going, wow, it's just like round and round the money goes for everybody. It's like something like that, like round and round that money goes. Interesting. Looking at, okay, reported. And I'm tired of this whole reporting to CPS thing going on. Like, first of all, CPS is a very corrupt organization, guys. I wouldn't use them at all. Like, you're not doing anybody a service by calling CPS. Good children that are truly abused or children that aren't, because DCFS does not know how to stand up to abusers and save a child, and they only know how to push around good parents. And steamroll them. And so CPS is an organization that really needs to go down.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
And I have my own story that is still playing out right now. And some people in my community were there as it happened and they know the story. Some people I've told the story to. And some people, you watch me and you don't even know that there's a story there. There's a reason why this room is so empty. Mm-hmm.
Or what exactly is going on here. So if you were in my live on Monday evening, everybody was talking about this in the chat, that CPS was investigating Gypsy Rose Blanchard because Case Studies had originally posted a YouTube video about this. So what happened was that a woman made a post in a Gypsy Rose Blanchard Facebook group, and that's how everyone found out about this. So I wanted to go find the original Facebook post and just communicate with the person that made the post, because there was a lot of things going around that maybe she was a family member of Gypsy's. So I just wanted to find out for myself. So we're just going to go over this entire situation and talk about everything that we know. So first and foremost, this person is not an aunt or a relative in any way to Gypsy Rose Blanchard. They do not even live in the same state. So let's go ahead and look at the original Facebook post first. This was posted in the Gypsy Rose Blanchard open discussion group. So this post was made, and then she also attached a letter that she got back from CPS.
To have a baby taken from their family, I told them exactly how I felt. I told them I felt the way I provided the proof that Gypsy put out there, and clearly children just felt the same exact way. Hopefully baby Aurora is perfectly fine, taken care of, and they won't need to continue services with her. But if you have been seeing from Gypsy the first time, mom hasn't disturbed you, then clearly you need some help. You want to talk and understand, including babies. But the phone call of genuine concern that apparently was valid. The baby needs Gypsy to get some type of help from people that are professionals, and they can give it to her so that nothing happens to the baby. So throw the heat if you want to. By the way, when you call CPS on somebody, they never send you a letter and tell you how the case is going. So this is actually, I don't know what she's saying, that this letter showed up in his proof, because you make a complaint to CPS, they never get back to you and say, oh yeah, thank you for that call. We are investigating the family. Good job. No, like, you make the complaint to CPS, and that's the end of you talking to them. Because you're not allowed to know about the case, because you're not part of the case. Just because you called doesn't make you part of the case. The only thing that makes you part of the case is if you're family. And so, no, you're not going to get a letter that says, oh yeah, thank you for the call. By the way, it was such a valid call. Like, we are so watching over this family now, and they're going to get the help they need. Okay, so this is so fake. And this is what I'm talking about. This is fake bullcrap. People trying to become famous off fake bullcrap.
Yes. So this was posted by a Christina G, and this reads, paper came of no link. The proof that J. Hopefully, business wasn't shit, baby. What I that you want call was an services. The letter is dated 4/15.
Confidential. I love how they put that word up there. Thank you for the report for child with the initials of no. First of all, is it called DCFS in Louisiana? I know it's called that here in Utah and possibly Idaho, but DCFS are the only initials. The only time I ever see those initials are Utah. It's CPS everywhere else, or DHS or DHHS or DCHS or something like that. DHCS, I don't know. They got a million different initials. Oh, so it is. Let's go to DCFS Louisiana real quick. Okay, let's take this. Okay, www.dcfs.louisiana LOUIS .gov. Okay, so it is called DCFS down there. Okay, because see, here's what I'm looking at. Okay. Report abuse, log into cafe, child support. Let's see what happens if we hit report abuse. To report a suspected child abuse or neglect, call suspected Louisiana child is being abused, neglected. Oh, crap. Sorry, I was trying to see. My hip hurts, so I was trying to straighten out my hip for a second. Okay, mandatory reporter means like if you work for a certain state agency and you hear somebody say, "Oh yeah, like my brother threw his kid up against a wall." Like you once you hear those, so you're saying your brother abused their child? You're a mandatory reporter. You have to mandatory by law. When I was a CASA volunteer, by law, if I heard anybody joke or say anything or casually say anything about abuse, I had to report it. So I would have been the mandatory reporter right here. They would have clicked right there and said, "Nope, I'm a mandatory reporter. I work for the Guardian ad litem. I have to report anything I hear." Yeah, it even goes over who are mandated reporters. It doesn't say what happens like once you report. Like, do you get a letter back? No, you don't. Okay, let's go back to this bogus letter, by the way. Because this is bogus, dude.
2025. It does have her first name, Christina. Now this says, "Dear Christina, thank you for your report of 4/14/2025 for a child with the initials of AB. If you are a..."
Yeah, right. They would not put the child's initials. Children are protected. They wouldn't even put initials. Like, they probably saw the Ruby Frank case and thought, okay, we could put initials down so I can prove that it was for Aurora Blanchard. But what if the baby's name is Aurora Anderson and the baby's initials are AA? Or what if the baby's name is Aurora Euchre Anderson or Aurora Anderson Euchre? You can name the baby anything you want, or Blanchard Anderson, your whatever. So, Erker. And so how do you know the baby's initials are AB? I heard they might be Anderson, not Blanchard.
A mandated reporter, and your initial report was made virtually through the Child Protection Hotline. The law requires that you follow up with a written report within 5.5
months old, and she still doesn't know how to handle the colic. And okay, fine, but why is she constantly on camera? She's over here TikTok dancing.
End quote. And come to find out, parents in Louisiana are in fact mandated reporters. Learn something new every day. Right out of a make logical sense.
And I was going to save this for a separate video, but it applies here as well. So this is just one example of many different posts.
In them. The video where she had Aurora in the carrier got 15.3 million views. The video where she was holding Aurora, claiming that she thought she heard Aurora say hi, has 7 million views. And this is the thing that starts people wanting to become family vloggers or mommy influencers, is they...
First of all, I never knew about family vloggers and mommy influencers. The reason why I started streaming with my kids is when they came home from school, I was streaming it was a thing, like once or twice a week I would stream Roblox with them if they were good when they came home. Because we used to watch A for Adley, and my daughter's favorite ones were like A for Adley, and then there was that one who plays Human Fall Flat with his dad. Like, I didn't know it was the world viewed people who played with their kids so wrong, because I did go viral in March of 2023. I went viral for being a mommy that played games with their children, and 2 of them are autistic. And so people are like, oh my gosh, she plays games with her autistic children, because my children wanted to. And so I didn't know that the world views it so badly.
They post a few videos of their kids and see how the views skyrocket, and then they want to continue that, because obviously views equal money.
Yes, they
do.
Now,
people respond. And the fact of the matter is that the internet is forever. CPS situation in general, is it something that I personally would have done? No, probably not.
Not unless you're literally there. You know that really is her child. See, look at the way Gypsy's looking at the camera right now. This isn't a mom who loves her child. This is a mom who's looking at the camera going, yeah, I look damn good holding my child, don't I? It's like, I look damn good holding my child. They're like, look at me. She's looking at herself in the camera and seeing how she looks holding her child. Her nose is still big, isn't it? Oh my gosh. Her nose looks crooked too. Like, her nose looks like she didn't get a very good nose job. Does anybody see that crooked nose? The big fat crooked nose? Did it get hit and get crooked? Because her nose, it takes a year for your nose to heal, and she's not even a year. She's not even like 6 months. She's just a few months after her nose job. So if you were to hit your nose, you'd really probably break it, because it's still healing. Because it looks like it's got a bump right there, like the bump is back. Like, did her nose get broke again? Anyways, but here we are. Like, you can tell she's looking at herself in the camera going, hi, yeah, I look good. Check me out. Look at me. Look at me. Oh, yeah, I look good. Yep, I look good. Make it sure. I look good.
But this is what happens when you expose your children to the World Wide Web. Not everybody thinks the same way, and not everybody is going to do the same thing.
Yeah, if I was her, if she was going to pay for a nose job, I would have shaved it all down and around and put this in smaller, and like,
I don't typically encourage
Shouldn't judge
people
her.
to go real life and to call people's jobs or call their parole.
No, you never go real life on somebody. Somebody once said it, like I was watching one of Hello Starlight's old streams from 2-3 years ago, and there was a guy who was on her panel and he said it correctly. Like, you have a problem with someone on the internet, you settle it right then and there. You and them on the internet on a panel together, not on a panel with your friends. And not real life. Don't call their jobs. Don't call CPS. Don't call anything. You and them on a panel together, and you guys talk it out. No, come on my panel, and me and my friends will talk it out with you. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up because it's almost 12:30, and I do got another stream that I didn't stream as much as I wanted to stream because there's so many different subjects I wanted to touch down on today. And so I touched down on the schmexual LDS subjects today. Maybe probably not as I could have, but I want to touch down on regrets and stuff and why people go apostate and the regrets that lead them there and how I share some of those. I used to share some of those regrets. And so I want to talk about going apostate and the regrets that people have that lead them there. And we'll talk about it. So I'll stream tomorrow. I got to find out my husband's meeting schedules, and I stream during his meeting schedules. So we'll see you then, and hope you guys enjoyed this stream. Remember, if you don't want Gypsy to be popular, let's move on to somebody else. Just kidding. But she's just so easy to pick on, though, because Gypsy's so easy to pick on because she picks on you back. She keeps feeding her haters, and you can't feed your haters. And she does. She goes to their sites and she tries to have their websites taken down and everything else. And so she feeds her haters. And I wish she wouldn't do that. I wish she would just not stream her Ken and the baby. If that really is her baby, go be a good mommy. Don't quit streaming. Don't even dance on stream. Because you need to go be a good mommy. Because you don't know how to. Like, a good mom could balance. I'm not saying moms cannot be streamers. They certainly can. I'm just saying somebody who never had a chance to be a good mom shouldn't focus so much on fame and streaming. And she should be focused on a child. She wanted a child. She brought the child into the world. She should be focused on that. Because a mom who knows how to balance things, which I didn't know how to balance things till not too long ago. Like, I was bad at balancing things. And I'll have to explain some of that later when I tell my story. Because I do have some accountability to take when I tell my story. Because I did spread myself thin. And I did always spread myself thin. And I learned not to spread myself thin anymore. So, and I messed some things up because I always spread myself thin. But I can't take that accountability just yet in a public forum where somebody can clip me. So we'll take that accountability later. We'll talk about crime and justice system and accountability. I wish you could just go take accountability in front of a judge like you would in front of the Lord and find repentance as long as it isn't schmurder. Like, unless it's self-defense schmurder. But like, if you can repent and be forgiven, then why does the judge need to punish you so harshly, you know? Like, God isn't punishing me harshly. Why are you? All right, you guys, love you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay warm, stay happy. Stay true. And I'm going to add one more to my usual saying. Stay spiritual, guys. Stay spiritual. Love you guys. I will see you guys later.